What's the new girl's name? Is that her? Oh. All right. Welcome to the study session, everybody. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Savad has volunteered to lead us in it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to convene open session. Call the meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the city council are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver it to the city clerk, Sylvia Edwards. She's over there. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Just so you all know, there's been a revision to the agenda. Item 4.2 for this presentation, or for that presentation, was updated. And with that, we'll roll into communications from the public. Sylvia, anybody want to speak?
Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards for communication from the public.
Okay, then we will declare communications from the public closed. Up first is agenda items. Wes, if you're listening out there, we're going to have an update on the amendment to the Downtown Revitalization Specific Plan, amending the Downtown Commercial Development Standards and Design Guidelines. The illustrious Joanne Coletta, Planning and Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, and good afternoon. This will be a joint presentation this afternoon with myself, and I also have Nick Perkins, as well as Kurt Nagel from Interwest Consulting Group, because they are assisting the city on this amendment to this downtown specific plan. So they will be joining me this afternoon. So what I would like to do is just kick this off for the city council and just give you a high overview of what we're going to be discussing today. What we're doing is an amendment to our downtown revitalization specific plan. And this was a plan that was already adopted here in the city, and it was done in 1998. And that plan covers about 621 acres, and it's located in the origin of our city, which is at 6th and Main Street and in and around Grand Boulevard. At the time that we did that, it was the same premise that we have today. It was really to spur revitalization within the downtown area, and to also have a plan that is intended for the downtown district to have its own guidelines and its land use districts. So what this plan already has in place is that we have zoning designations within a geographically defined area specifically for the downtown specific plan. And it also has its own development standards and design guidelines. So in our general plan, the downtown is identified as an opportunity district. So what the update intends to do is to implement that goal. And how this really started in doing an update to this plan, it started in 2020. At that time, the city really wanted to elevate its efforts on revitalizing the downtown area. So at that time, the Economic Development Department retained a consultant. And if you recall, they had that consultant prepare a downtown revitalization plan as well as a market analysis for the downtown area. So I just want to make it clear, although the downtown revitalization plan and the downtown revitalization specific plan have very similar names, they are two separate documents. And the specific plan is actually the regulatory document, so it does carry more weight. At that time, during the presentation to the council, there were some development standards as well as some design guidelines that were presented to the city council. So a lot of questions came about at that time asking, well, how do we actually implement what we're seeing in this DRP? And it was made known at that time that we would have to come back and amend the specific plan. So that's really what started all of this. And Interwest is here to help us do that. So that's exactly what they've been doing. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and turn it over to Nick, and he's going to explain some of the efforts that we have been taking to do that and make some changes to the specific plan.
Thank you, Jen. My name is Nick Pergakis. I'm the project manager for the update of the specific plan, and I'm going to be going over a few slides today. This slide shows the specific plan area boundaries. In black is the existing boundaries today, and then in red, kind of south of the circle, is the area of properties to be added into the specific plan area. And most of these new properties being added are residential. Next slide. This next slide shows the land use and regulating plan for the specific plan area. The downtown district is in red in the center of the map at 6th and Main, and then additional land use designations spread out along 6th Avenue and Main, including the general commercial zone, transitional commercial zone, and community services. And these are the same designations as in the existing specific plan today, so no major update to the land use districts. So in terms of community outreach, from 2021 to 2022, the downtown revitalization plan outreach had quite a bit of meetings and surveys going out to residents. There were 2,400 survey responses, as well as multiple small group discussions and city council study sessions during that time. So we've been looking through a lot of that information from that effort. And we also held stakeholder meetings back in February and March of this year for the update of the specific plan, and met with various departments at the city, including the Economic Development Department, Public Works. We met with a few Planning Commission members, the private real estate and business interests, the Corona Historical Preservation Society, as well as a member of the Corona History Association. The topics discussed with stakeholders earlier this year, in terms of kind of the themes that came up, was having a consistent character and image of downtown was important, and circulation and traffic congestion in terms of really peak congestion happening in the city along 6th. It's kind of a concern that came up during some of those interviews. Parking in downtown seen as somewhat being a challenge, but perhaps with some structured parking or some other parking management strategies, you feel like it could be handled pretty well over time as the downtown redevelops and changes over time. Also, public safety came up a little bit in our meetings, particularly with some of the homeless people in downtown. Building standards, so wanting to see the character of other downtowns around Southern California. So like having buildings being closer to the street and creating kind of the pedestrian realm that people kind of experience in other downtowns. And then the implementation of the plan was also important to see some change happening over the next few years with a specific plan. There's been a few buildings coming in, like City of Hope building and new Starbucks, but they also wanted to see new businesses such as restaurants and entertainment venues come into the city and revitalize the downtown area. So the specific plan chapters with major updates include the development standards chapter, chapter 3, which includes building and site development standards for new development, as well as adaptive reuse of existing buildings, design guidelines for site planning, buildings, landscape design and signage. Also, the streetscapes chapter has guidelines to improve the quality of the public realm and public design. For the updated development standards we're working on, that includes some changes to building setbacks, including upper floor building stepbacks for helping with the massing and fenestration of the buildings in the downtown area. Also, open space, providing some provisions for private open space and public open space, landscape and hardscape features, as well as parking. So this slide shows a table on the left with existing development standards today in the current specific plan versus new development standards that are being proposed on the right. We have adjusted setbacks to allow buildings to be closer to the street to create an active pedestrian environment, such as in the downtown district and transitional commercial district. We've also adjusted side setbacks to allow buildings to be closer to the property line in a few districts. And then in one district, we've adjusted the rear setback to accommodate parking in the rear of the property. And some of those changes are kind of shown in the orange, that changes on the right, what those changes are compared to the table on the left. Also for development standards, here's some examples on the left. In terms of building setbacks, we're looking at minimal building setbacks from the property line. So, pretty much like a 0 to 5 foot setback for storefront buildings to create a downtown setting in a more pedestrian-oriented streetscape. The center photo shows tree wells and kind of hardscape design examples that, again, can promote an attractive outdoor pedestrian environment in the downtown. And the example on the right is just showing common open space on site that can be addressed in the specific plan, calling for new development to provide outdoor plaza space for seating and outdoor dining. So in terms of massing and scale of buildings, again, we are looking to reduce the facades of the buildings and the appearance along streets and adjacent to residential neighborhoods with building setbacks. This shows an example of a third floor step back and how that could work. And we'll have step back standards and illustrations in the document to kind of explain how that works for developers and property owners. With that, I'll turn it over to Kurt Nagel.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Kurt Nagel, and I'm with Interwest, and I'm supporting and working with Nick and Joanne on the update. And Nick had mentioned there's 3 chapters that are undergoing the most, I guess you'd say, revision, and I'll be talking about 2 of those chapters, the design guidelines chapter and then the streetscape chapter. So to start with the design guidelines, the revisions in many respects are intended to support the original intent of the specific plan, but also to strengthen that by working towards reestablishing the traditional urban fabric and restore this idea of the core of the city as an active hub. Also, to ensure high-quality development, we'd like to see or hope to see new development create a more positive image. Also, to create a walkable environment that's been mentioned a couple times now, and the guidelines will support that. Activate the downtown streets and public spaces. Also encourage compatible development with the surrounding context. And finally, a key part of what we've been working on is to make the guidelines more clear and more understandable, both to say developers or designers who are looking to design and build within the community, but also for staff and leadership to review those developments and make sure they are in keeping with the design guidelines. So the design guidelines are organized in regard to different land use types. So we have a section devoted to the downtown core, a section devoted to commercial and general commercial, a section devoted to light industrial and business park development, and then general residential guidelines. And the topics addressed, each of those areas, downtown core, commercial, light industrial, and residential, has design guidelines for site planning and building design. So addressing on-site circulation, on-site open space, the design character of those aspects of the site planning, how the building should be oriented, so forth. And then the building design guidelines treating things like the design of windows, entrances, massing, and details, materials, colors, et cetera. Then we also have additional sections on landscape design and signage and lighting. So then moving to the streetscapes section, I'd say the changes aren't quite as extensive as, say, the design guidelines chapter, but there are some changes to make the chapter more readable and we hope more attractive as well. So one of the things we're looking at is introducing, well, the original the original document has street sections for various streets, and we're looking to upgrade the graphic appearance of those. In the case of the Sixth Street, the design of the street will actually be modified, and we want to incorporate that into the specific plan. I won't get into that too much because I don't want to steal the thunder of the next group, which will be talking about that in much more detail. But understand that the work that they're undertaking and that they'll get to will be incorporated into the specific plan. And then, again, mentioned, we're trying to improve the graphic read and legibility of the street sections and then the standards and guidelines that go with those street sections to guide any improvements that might be made to the streets in the future. So these are just examples of Main Street and the imagery that will support the standards and streetscape standards and guidelines. And then also within the streetscape chapter, which is actually broader, addresses the public realm more broadly, where we have guidelines for public realm signage, so vehicular directional signages, pedestrian directional signage, or in this case, we're showing example gateway signage. So this is an idea for a gateway for downtown prepared by another consultant group, but we are intend to incorporate it within the specific plan document in identifying where those gateways would go, the intent to really promote and reinforce the identity of the downtown. And I'll turn it back over to Joanne.
So with all that being said, here's our next steps. We've been aggressively working at this for the past 8 months, so we would like to get the draft document, the entire document, out to the public in mid-October, because we do have this scheduled for the Planning Commission in November, so we want to make sure there's a good amount of time that there is a review of the document. So we just want to make that available not only to the commission, but to the public in general. And then if all goes well there, we will be bringing it to the city council in December, and we will have a brand new downtown revitalization specific plan document with a new look and a new image and all these new standards. The document is 26 years old, so it's kind of nice to come in and redo this effort, and that's what Interwest has been helping us do. So we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody have questions, or you want to go to the public first? Public first? Sylvia, are there any speaker cards?
Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards for this item.
All right, public session's closed. Tony's good. Wes?
I just really quick, I want to say thank you. This is a long time coming, and I'm really excited to see it go forward. I know we added in the residential piece. Is that just basically just to adjust the setbacks, or was there some other reason? Did I miss?
They added area to it.
Yeah, so through the process she went through in 2022, we added more residential properties to be part of the downtown. So all we're doing is expanding that specific plan boundary to add more of those. And all of the changes to the development standards are focused in the commercial district, not in the residential district.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see, I saw that we added them, but I didn't see any of them listed in the table. So I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
With that, and thank you for your primer before jumping into the presentation, that this is like the regulatory arm of the downtown revitalization plan that we spent so long on to get people's input and to make sure that we have a plan that is incorporating of our vision for the future of downtown. The specific plan is putting into regulation what we have developed from this vision. And if I hear you correctly, what we're saying for the residential part is just we're not necessarily going to, it's not going to force those homeowners in those areas to make improvements specific to the historical standards, right?
That's correct. And if you recall, our last council meeting, we already adopted new residential guidelines. So Interwest is taking those and putting those into the new document. So that was not part of their contract. That is something staff did for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for your work on this.
Okay, I know architects will say, I'll design whatever you want, but tell me what you want. And these documents tell us what we want. So I don't think people will know how valuable these are until they start seeing it being built. So this is all really good stuff. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Interwest people. With that, we will go to 6th Street Transformation Design Concepts. Keegan Olds. Keegan's here. Keegan Olds, CIP Manager, will present this item. Good luck, Keegan.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Keegan Olds. I am the acting CIP manager for Public Works here at the City of Corona. Joining me today, this is actually a joint presentation, are Jitka Dikajova and Kirk Keller with Studio 111. They are the designers for Phase 1 of the 6th Street transformation. And this presentation today, as with our previous study session, as we discussed the 6th Street transformation design concepts, will inform the transformation of the 6th Street corridor from Grand to Grand, not just that Phase 1 from Main to Ramona specifically, but also the in-house design that our staff will be performing today. So for today's agenda, we'll go over the ask, the background, not in as great of detail in the background as the previous session, the current conditions, a review of the proposed concepts, along with additional data and feedback sourced by other agencies that have gone through similar transitions. And then we'll open up to questions. So the ask is that City Council provide direction on the proposed 6th Street transformation design concepts. And with that, I'll hand it over to the Studio 111 team.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me back, City Council. I think last time we went over the background pretty clearly, so I'll just kind of tie the project goals and priorities for the transformation of the 6th Street and make it clear that the two concepts we will be looking at will be only from Main Street to Ramona Street. So when we received and I think the previous team actually mentioned the extensive public outreach, when we received the information, those kind of drove the design of the two concepts and help us develop the project goals, which span placemaking and culture character, connectivity, mobility, inclusivity, and buy-in from all the community, and also economic and environmental vitality. So we will look at two concepts. We narrow it down from our last meeting, which was 3 concepts. We are down to option A and option B. So very kind of quick overview for option A, design precedents. We can see in Rancho Cucamonga, outdoor dining in San Jose, and kind of like how the buffered bike lane look like, or the crosswalks as well. And we have 2 specific items to look at, and Kirk will be here to answer any specific questions about these 2, which is Paramount Boulevard in California. We can see the before and after. The only difference here is that they did not add a dedicated bike lane like we are doing in option A. And kind of looking at the transformation on street parking, there is 2 drive lanes. You can see the streetscape, planting, landscape bulb outs, and traffic calming in general. Second example is in Long Beach, which is a transformation of the 3rd Street. And you can again see the before, after, adding bulb outs on this block, pedestrian crosswalks, streetscape, and kind of activating the block as well. And this is what the option A basically look like. It's pretty simple. It's a traditional design. Bulb outs, dedicated bike lane. There is a shared lane between buses and travel lane. Medium planting, kind of like you have now on some of the portion on 6th Street. And again, replicating on the other side, buffered bike lane, on-street parking. And in the center here, you can see kind of like a design for the main crosswalk tying the mall. And because between Main Street and Ramona, we have the widest public right-of-way, this is kind of showing how this design was transitioned going forward to basically to the end of the circle. And this is how it would look like looking on the west. So again, keeping the same design, just kind of narrowing the space. And again, on the east, which is a little wider than the west block, the same design can transform fairly easily to keeping the bike lanes and one travel lane in each direction. Option B, and we are looking at one case study in Lancaster in California, and you can see the images during traffic, during normal day-to-day traffic, and then during event space. So option B here, looking at before and after. And again, the only thing they didn't do here, as we are planning to do, is adding a dedicated bike lane. But again, the kind of mid-block parking is shown. And you can see some pretty interesting data which were compiled by the Project of Public Space. There is a link if you want to read the full report, but basically pedestrian collisions decreased significantly. Motor vehicle collisions also decreased. And there was an uptick in new businesses and retail sales. And kind of looking how this option transforms here in Corona 6th Street. And again, a pretty simple dedicated bike lane, and you have the mid parking. So I know right now there was some concerns about the parallel back-in parking. This is a front parking, so people are not backing into the parking spots. They just kind of slide in. They do have to back out when they are leaving, and that's why this travel lane is a little wider than in the option A, so you have more space to back out. And during a potential closure, temporary closure for events, you can use the whole space as kind of like a pretty cool outdoor plaza and have a band, public market, while still potentially keeping the bike lane open for connections. And here is the transition looking beyond Main Street and Ramona. And again, we are narrowing down into much narrower public right-of-way, so we have to have some transition here. So we are going from the main parking in the middle, which is only going to occur between Ramona and Main, and removing it to make the space in the right-of-way we have, which is very similar, by the way, to option A. It's basically shown shared travel lane, on-street parking, and a dedicated bike lane. And same scenario looking on east, where we also added the mid-block crossing because the other crossing was fairly far away down the block. So this is the potential transition. And again, this transition is not really part of the project scope. It's just showing how it would transform further. Main features breakdown. So again, shared car and bus lane for both options, dedicated bike lane, which is class 2 in this scenario, parallel parking in option A, and diagonal parking in the middle of the street in option B. And there is a potential to add a bus stop between Main and Ramona on option A. And here we can kind of clearly summarize the pros and cons. So I will go through the pros first for option A. We have trees and planting at medium with potential with water infiltration, green infrastructure, pretty simple and easy to navigate and ties together with other parts of the circle, and a predictable design layout. For pros in option B, we have opportunity for tree canopy over the street, so maybe creating a little denser tree planting, mitigating heat island, placemaking opportunity, which is pretty big deal, creates a special presence of true civic center, flexible space for programming and events. And this option actually allows for more parking when we kind of look at the parallel parking on a side street versus the angled parking in the middle. We counted approximately 77% increase. And because when I mentioned the traffic lanes, the shared car and bus lanes are a little wider, it gives us a little more maneuverable space for emergency vehicles. And again, more conducive to traffic calming. People who are driving will have to slow down when somebody is backing back into traffic from the angled parking spots. And here are the cons for options. So option A, I think the obvious one is we don't have a large flexible space for events and programming. It doesn't really lend itself easier for street closure for events. And less maneuverable space for emergency vehicles. The lanes are only 16 feet wide. There is cons for option B, which again may require a little more additional capital and kind of thinking how we want to program and use the space as a central plaza, and also may involve greater learning curve for motorists to navigate the center road parking. So we are looking again here at option A and option B together. And this is kind of the transitioning, looking on the west block, one block west, and then looking one block east, and how we transition here. And I think, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jitka. And again, as a reminder, the ask is that City Council provide direction on the proposed 6th Street transformation design concepts, which will directly inform Studio 111's design of the Main to Ramona section and provide guidance for the city staff to continue design with the grand to grand section of the rest of 6th Street for the transformation. And we are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you back it up 2 slides? Yep. One there, just leave it there for a little bit. Sylvia, are there any speaker cards? Anybody want to speak?
Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards for this item.
Okay, public comments are closed. We'll head on over to Dario.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions, but I'm not a big fan of the flex. I'm a little nervous about the people parking in the middle. Also, I think that we have a couple other options for utilizing the middle of a street for street events that I currently really like, obviously in front of the HCC and in the future in front of City Park. So I don't really see the value in that for utilizing it as a gathering space and or any type of other event space. So I'm not a big fan of the flex. I'm a bigger fan of the stroll.
Wesley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo the council member's comments. I feel the same way. I mean, we already have we're already planning for a lot of event space. And I think when I think of event space, I think of something that we're not going to be using a ton of. I mean, it's going to be an occasional use. And we are, going all in on 6th and Main being an area for folks to walk and to shop and to dine in. I want to make it, position it to be the best possible opportunities for businesses there to succeed. So more room for them to move around is better, I would see from in the long run versus having an occasional space to use. It is very nice. I've seen the Palmdale one. It's very nice. It functions well for them. I don't see a need based on, I think, exactly what Councilor Daddario said, that we have 2 other places that we use in the same way. And I will say, though, that we used to, when I was a kid, we would do downtown Thursday nights in that exact space. And I don't remember having any issues moving around because there was a curb. People, they set up their tents. I remember having churros and tacos and burgers, and I had a great time as a kid and kind of running around. So I don't see that being a detriment to the way that it's the stroll. So I'm also in favor of option A and cost as well. Thank you.
I want to ask how many people lived in the city when you were in your youth, because I think it probably looked a lot different in general.
35,000. But I can tell you there's more people.
Town. Yeah?
There's a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will agree that I just don't know that we will have as many opportunities to take advantage of the flex design as it would allow for. And I think it was Councilmember Steiner shared last time. He made a really good point about just when people park in the middle, how they tend to just cross exactly where they park rather than walk to the designated crosswalk, and there's a safety concern there. So, and we see that happen in like the Dos Lagos Shopping Center where people park, diagonally in the middle. They cross exactly where they park and they don't go to the walkway. While I really love the creativity, I'm nervous about that part. I think we can get the tree canopy with the stroll, especially if we plant more trees in those roundouts, I think they're called, or I'm all for all those trees, and because we can get the canopy going from both sides. And I'm also concerned, added bonus for the cost. Now, this slide that we're currently looking at, this is what the streets design will look like after Main and Ramona, right?
That's correct.
And so an additional reason why I like stroll is that the west block and the east block, west of Main and east of Ramona, will have the bike lane separating the travel lane and the parking lane, and I think that's a good thing. So for those reasons, I believe option A is our better option. Thank you.
Where's the nearest bus stop if we didn't put one between Main and Ramona?
I think there's one right in front of the library.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
I was just
Front of the
curious
library.
if we had another one downtown right in that general vicinity as well. Okay. I'm conflicted on this. I like option B, the flex, for the ability to have a flexible community space, but also 77% more parking is pretty impressive too. But since there's already 3 votes, it doesn't really matter what I think.
Yeah, I think the big three took it down. So I guess it's us youngsters, Jim, you and I, that are. So, all right. I think you got it. It's the stroll. We're strolling. I think that's it for study session. This went quick. With that, meeting's adjourned. We'll have city council meeting here tonight at 6:30. See y'all then.